Welcome back, everyone. I'm super excited about today's episode because I'm honored to welcome the closing keynote for the Atlantic Education Institute. He's a returning guest on My Creative Classroom. He is the founder and CEO of InkSmith, Jeremy Hedges. Jeremy, thank you so much for joining me on the show.
Hey, Brian. Thanks so much for having me on.
I've had you on the show before. We've chatted about InkSmith, a little bit about the journey, some of the products that you guys offer. So anybody listening or watching, I encourage them to listen to our show as we chat through that. But for today's sake, we want to talk about your upcoming keynote. It's August 6th, I believe, on that final day. So let's tell our listeners and our viewers a little bit about who you are and your journey as a leader.
Isn't summer flying by? Like August 6th seems really, really soon. So I started InkSmith about 5 years ago. I've always been a very different learner. I've always been looking for connections in the real world and how what I'm learning relates to the world around me. So for me, bringing something like a 3D printer into the classroom was a way to, spark kids' creativity, take a challenge-based approach to learning. So that's where we started. Everything was 3D printers, hence InkSmith. Eventually, we started to add more tools to our repertoire, so laser cutters, robotics kits, and we've really focused on developing project-based learning environments where kids learn about real-world issues in the context of technology solutions, and they learn the tech skills along the way as they prototype their solutions to these problems. So InkSmith is a business that does teacher training, provides the curriculum content alongside hardware products and the actual hardware itself. In a very interesting turn in my life and our teams, the pandemic hit in March 2020. We really didn't know, as an EdTech business, where that left us. We were probably 2 days into, isolating and being out of the office when we got a call from a local doctor that said, we're short 10,000 face shields for Waterloo region, and can you help? So of course our team said yes. We unboxed 3D printers, uncrated laser cutters, started making face shields to donate towards that effort. And a couple of days later, I had a medical device license. The Ontario government asked us for about 500,000 face shields on day 4. And then over the next month, we would receive another 11 million face shield orders, going on to scale our team to 330 people and just go through this really incredible experience of being innovative, going through 1 million different technologies to actually scale this and respond to I think had we known the size of the problem when we started, we may not have bid off what we did, but we were successful, and we ended up making about 16 million face shields in a just under 5-month period last year, and then went on to make medical masks and so on. So we've had a really crazy journey in the pandemic, and interestingly, while all that's been happening, we had some new resources. We've redeveloped what we've built in education, and I think we're positioned in an exciting way to help guide that transition into, now we have devices in kindergarten and grade 1 and grade 2 and so on, where one-to-one devices were the brand new shiny thing in grade 9. So a lot's happened. It's been a wild experience as a leader, lots of ups and downs, and a bit of a roller coaster, as I'm sure we've all had through the pandemic. So I think that's kind of the core of what I'm going to talk about, is that experience as a leader, and how if we bring that type of thinking and learning to the classroom, we're going to create more of these stories together.
And what an amazing story, and you shared it on the earlier podcast, and to hear it even again, it kind of gives you chills, because it's not every kind of company or system that can just on a dime say, yep, we're going to change what we do and how we do it to benefit society. And as a leader, and that's kind of my follow-up question to you is, how did you get your team on board? Like, you went from, we're an EdTech company, we kind of sell 3D printers, we provide professional learning, to overnight you say, instead of doing that, let us start building face shields, right? PPE and doing that process. So as a leader, do you convince your team, maybe there was no convincing, but to join that journey with you?
Yeah, honestly, at the time, it kind of felt like we were the last line of defense there, because we were so small and flexible, we were probably one of the first companies to actually start scaling at all. But for us, it was like, our region's short. We know we can help. We don't really know what's coming. Like at that stage, we knew it was a pandemic, didn't really know how deadly it was or what to expect. So I think in a way we felt like we didn't have a choice. It was a value-driven, moment for us, that it was like, hey, this is our way to contribute here, and we've always been pretty purpose-driven as people, and I think that's why those folks joined our team in education. So, the stars kind of aligned, and the right team were in the right place, and even the people that we found early to fill those like core critical roles and like supply chain and quality and manufacturing, etc. Like it was like all the right people were available and showed up when we needed them. So it was a very cool experience. I said the word serendipity a lot in that first 6 months.
It's amazing, and like you said, right people in the right place to make this happen and make it successful, because, and for those of you, anybody who's listening or watching kind of for the first time Jeremy's story, it's not InkSmith doesn't you're producing them, you're making them, but you reinvented yourself and created the Canadian Shield.
Yeah, we spun up a whole new business, yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that, how that turned out, because now you're not just running InkSmith in a sense, you're also running the Canadian Shield. So how does that work? Is it kind of sister companies, or how did that kind of come about?
Yeah, it was at first everybody from EdTech shifted over fully, and we dove in, and I think at that time, nobody was in the classroom. There wasn't a ton that we could do there, and with everything going on, there wasn't a lot of not a lot of room in the day. But eventually we did hire a new dedicated team for the education side of the business, and what we've done is taken a kind of shared services approach where things like HR and logistics and finance, etc., work for both companies, and I do too, which means a lot of evening work, unfortunately. But that's been an experience managing both, and like keeping in tune with the vision and where we're going, and keeping people excited and motivated on both sides. And we started with face shields in the Canadian Shield, and then very quickly had to pivot again to make medical masks because you couldn't sell a shield anymore. I still have some on the shelf. But I think we started in March. Then by September, we were almost fully a face mask manufacturer. Then by January, we were starting to make our own mask, like medical mask machines, so the actual automation for this. And now we've developed a system that I would say is probably world leading in terms of its capabilities and affordability for a mask manufacturing company. So we've developed a system that takes raw material and turns it into a machine vision inspected, quality checked and packed mask in a box that then goes down a conveyor at a fraction of the cost of what you would get it for from existing companies in the space. I mean, there isn't a ton of them, so maybe competition is light, but it's been quite an experience. We've developed a lot. We've got several patents that we've filed over the last year. So I have had quite an education myself in this time.
Absolutely. I've said the word amazing a couple times now, but as a leader, the CEO of a company, saying to yourself, what, instead of just kind of running this train until the wheels fall off, let's make a separate company and let's keep it going and going full tilt. And I think that's amazing to hear, that you had the drive and the want to do that, and not just say, okay, well, we made our whatever number of shields, let's end there and let's keep going with our EdTech business. It's amazing to hear that as a leader you said, no, let's keep going. There's a need here, and let's keep building. So that, we've talked a little bit about probably what you're going to say in your keynote, but for our listeners who are still on the fence and thinking, do I go to the Atlantic Education Institute? Do I attend Jeremy's closing keynote session? What can they expect when they listen to your closing keynote ceremony?
Yeah, I'm going to talk a lot about what we taught in the classroom, and so we teach a lot about design thinking, the thinking skills that you bring to bat when you're solving a problem, and particularly a real world challenge. So in some ways, I see the Canadian Shield and the story that we've gone through and all of those little design challenges and design thinking sprints along the way as like, this is what could be, and this is the kind of capability you will create in your students if you take the leap and bring project-based learning into your classroom, teach global competencies, focus on, real world problems that are tied to the science and math curriculum. Like, there's a way to do this that, doesn't take you so far out of the wheelhouse that you can't grade it or get your work done that you need to. But I think it's a really, really powerful experience for students, and we've never had a better opportunity to do it. Like, you've all been so flexible over the last year, and like technology, for better and for worse, has become so integrated in the day-to-day. And I think this is the way to carve a positive vision for how we're going to bring technology into the classroom in a way that everybody can relate to, is accessible, that we have a continuum finally. I hate and love the word STEM, because I think STEM, it kind of puts it in a box, and often it's like you've got your after school program, or it hits in one grade or another. What I really want to see, and what we're setting out to do, is build a continuum from K to 12 where kids, in the process of learning their science and math curriculum, also learn design thinking and computational thinking, and all about technology and about climate change issues, and tying, I want kids to learn about deforestation, and then, build an automated seed planter to learn about how they can fix that problem and be part of the solution. Like, this generation is going to have to be adaptable, and our story is about being adaptable. So I'm going to try to interweave that as much as I can, and tell that story of where I see things going, and hopefully where we can drive things in the years ahead. And we are going through a bit of a brand pivot as well with InkSmith, so that may make an appearance in the keynote as well.
That's amazing to hear. It gives me chills, because that's what we try to do in education, is make those real world connections. And what you just said there is 100% the truth. You guys lived it, and it can happen. It's not that it's just some made up story in a textbook. You can really do this and make it connect to the students, so that it's, not in a box. It's real world, and they can continue learning beyond that. So Jeremy, I have one more question for you before we head out. The theme of the Institute is innovative leadership. And so I wanted to ask you, what does being an innovative leader mean to you?
Yeah, I think, for me, it's being comfortable in failure, and being like willing to pursue ideas, and knowing when to stop. But for us, we've always sort of taught that process, like that design thinking process of how you critically assess a problem and go step by step through that solution making process. And to me, at some level, it's a culture that you create within your team. So if you're a school district leader, it's about how you create the attitudes and like fortitude in your teachers and the people that you work with to like take these problems head on and be comfortable learning alongside their students, not necessarily being ahead of them. And it's a lot about like flexibility and learning as you go, and accepting that you're not always the smartest in the room at any given topic. And I wish I had a better answer, but I think there's a little bit of something that's innate there, but it's a thing you can learn.
And you say you wish you had a better answer, but I think you said a great points there. Your willingness to fail is one thing. As an innovative leader, as any leader, you have to have that willingness to say, I need to make a step forward, but I may stumble. And who knows what will happen, but we can pick ourselves up after that. And I think that's a great way, to kind of end our conversation is sharing your thoughts on how that is, or what it could look like, but also that, you could learn how that could happen, how you can become an innovative leader down the road. So Jeremy, I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day. I can only imagine how busy you are to share your conversation with me and share some thoughts with our listeners and our viewers about your upcoming keynote at the Atlantic Education Institute. I encourage all of our listeners and all of our viewers to check out InkSmith and see what products they have to offer, and register to the Atlantic Education Institute July 26th to the August 6th. And you don't want to miss, Jeremy Hedges here from InkSmith, who will be talking about their story, what it looks like, and you never know, it may inspire you in your leadership roles. So once again, Jeremy, I thank you for sharing some time with me. I look forward to seeing you at the Atlantic Education Institute. As always, follow us on social media at My Creative Pod. My name is Brian Willett, and this was My Creative Classroom.